This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome everybody to the April 3rd high risk recurrent advanced prostate cancer group. This is Rick Davis and I'm sitting in the hot seat tonight. Um, and just a quick word of thanks to our sponsors, and especially a thanks to Ben for reminding me. They are currently Bayer, Pfizer, Myovant, Janssen, Myriad, Telix, Foundation Medicine, and we have a couple more up our sleeve that we're working on. I'm going to start off tonight by just giving a quick update on Professor Herb, and the news is not very good. He's in the ICU at NIH, continues to be there. Um, it's been said that the NIH takes care of its own, in quotes, but I don't think they should have been taking care of Herb from the outset. And his team, his doc at the NIH, his GU Medonc at the NIH, and his GU Medonc at Hopkins have somehow or other, in my view, and I'm speaking just for myself, not on behalf of ANCAM, but in my view, they dropped the ball. We knew 8 weeks ago or more that Herb's cortisol and ACTH indicators were very high. That was at the time of his back surgery. And that should have been a big enough red flag for genitourinary medical oncologists of the caliber of Dr. Carducci and Dr. Karzai to follow him. From what I can gather, we've heard almost nothing from Dr. Carducci until I encouraged Herb and his brother Ken to reach out to him last week. And we certainly haven't heard too much from Dr. Karzai, who knew Herb was going into the NIH, and knew also that his cancer showed neuroendocrine, which we discovered from the liver biopsy, but she doesn't seem to be treating him for neuroendocrine cancer, and now he's probably too weak. How did this all happen? Well, there were forces that pushed him into the NIH because they thought that the neuroendocrine markers were coming from something other than his cancer, and why they didn't turn to the obvious is just beyond me, but they didn't. We had made a little mistake with Herb and told him that we thought that because he didn't have neuroendocrine cancer in his spine, he probably didn't have neuroendocrine cancer. We were wrong on that, thanks to some research that Ben did that updated us on prior research we had. It was by the same author, Pete Nelson in Seattle at UW. And with neuroendocrine cancer, it can show in different lesions in the body. That's not usually true in prostate cancer. We've learned the hard way. But even if we didn't know that, one would hope that experienced docs like Carducci and Karzai did. And so what's happened is he's got no medication for his cancer now in probably 3 to 4 weeks. Cancer's taken off, and it may be too late to give him carboplatin, which is what our doctors, our advisors are suggesting, and they treat neuroendocrine, but they can't interfere. And that it's just, and I'm sure that if you asked his doctors, they'd say, "Oh, well, we thought it was his back. We thought it was his back surgery." I mean, that's understandable, but it's to me, it's not an excuse. So I'm telling it like it is, as most of you who know me know I do. I'm speaking for myself. I'm truly upset that we can't navigate one of our own, but it isn't for want of trying, believe me. There have been conflicts of interest, which I don't want to get into, but there have been clear conflicts of interest in his navigation, and we just have to leave it at that. So that's my update. I wish it was brighter, but it isn't. So there we
Can I
go.
ask a quick question?
Yes, one,
Uh,
but I can't spend a lot of time on this.
no, okay. Well, when you say your own, you just mean people who advise you or people who are part of the group?
When I say we can't navigate one of our own, you mean? Or
Oh,
when I say
you mean him? Yeah,
when
who's our own?
our own ANCAM participants?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, if we can't navigate our own ANCAM participants, it reflects badly on us. But we've done, in this case, we did everything we possibly could. The advice that we got, the medical advice that we got, came from from medical practitioners on our advisory board. And he was not in any clinical trial, no. Although the NIH treated him like he was, they treated him like a lab rat. Everybody who gets treated at the NIH. Oh, Anthony, the reason he's at the NIH is because he's he leads a lab at the NIH. He and his wife are both employees at the NIH in Bethesda, Maryland, and Herb leads a biologic neurobiological lab at the NIH. So that's the reason the NIH gets involved. Sorry, I should have pointed that out. All right, we're going to move on to Stephen Waite. And Mr. Waite, we're going to go through a few questions with you that will
Yep.
help us inform. Is that okay by you?
Yes, sir. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So how old are you?
I am 64 years old.
Okay. And where do you live?
I live in Brandon, Mississippi, which is just outside of Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay. We have some Alabamites, but we don't Alabamians, but I don't think we have any Mississippians right now. What year were you first diagnosed?
I was diagnosed November 19th, 2020.
Okay. And at the time you were diagnosed, do you recall what your Gleason score was and what your PSA level was?
My PSA was 22.4, and all 18 cores of my biopsy were a Gleason 9, 5+4.
Okay. And where were you being treated when when you got diagnosed?
University of Mississippi Medical Center, which is actually where I worked until June 30th. I retired, and I was in a non-clinical role.
Oh, but you were in the hospital part of it, or you were in somewhat doing something else?
I was the information security officer, so I was responsible for the hospital as well as the 7 medical schools.
Oh, Bill Franklin, a friend of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We've got another our board president, Bill Franklin, who's on this call, is also a kind of an information and security officer as well.
Hi, Bill.
So,
How you doing?
Another
well,
IT guy.
That's right.
we'll, we'll connect you. Now, what treatment how did you follow up with this 18 out of 18 and 5+4, Stephen?
Okay, so I had an abdominal CT, which was negative. Following the biopsy, I had a chest CT, which was negative, and a bone scan, which was negative. So the determination that I made, or the decision I made, was thinking it was localized, so I had robot-assisted radical prostatectomy on December 31st of 2020.
Okay, so you had an RPP, an RRP, I should say, on
12/31/2020.
12/31/2020. Oy,
Yes.
that's not a great way to go into 21, is it?
No.
And tell us what the results of that initial treatment were. What was your PSA when it was first measured?
Okay, so you mean following the radical prostatectomy?
Yes.
Okay, it was 0.032. Got as low as 0.020. Um, I was uh, there was some cancer in the margins, but there was no SVA, and so I was classified as T3A.
Yep.
I have since learned that I also have a BRCA2 variant.
Aha.
BRCA2 variant, which I share with my sister and her daughter, my niece, both who are breast cancer survivors.
Yeah.
My mother died of ovarian cancer, so we
Yeah.
guessed that perhaps mom carried it as well. And because I was positive, our oldest daughter has undergone genetic testing, and she is positive for the same variant. So, and I have a maternal first cousin. So again, my mother died of ovarian cancer. A maternal first
Yeah.
cousin who has that same variant, and she is now battling breast cancer. So.
So just to let you know, we are very sensitive to both inherited and somatic mutations here in this group. And one of our advisors runs the BRCA Research Center at UCSF, and her co-director is Alan Ashworth, who I see is being honored at the coming ASCO, and he was one of the people that discovered BRCA. And she herself carries BRCA, as do two of her boys, and so we have some great resources. We have a number of people who carry BRCA, and as you have probably learned, it may impact your treatment. So tell us a little more. And did you know that you carried BRCA before you had the surgery or after?
I believe we did the genetic testing afterward.
After. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm so glad you did
Yeah.
it.
I'm
Now,
so glad for my daughter because she can now make better decisions for herself.
yeah,
She doesn't.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we are actively working on a previvors group.
okay.
We don't have it yet, but we feel it's needed, and we're working with Force, and we're working with UCSF BRCA Research Center. So we know how important it is. So tell us how since early 21, what's happened in terms of your prostate cancer.
Okay. So, like I'm sure most of us did, I just dove into a ton of research and found that studies, more and more studies, were showing that um, uh, animal fat and protein were can facilitate or exacerbate prostate cancer. So I requested a physician, which is um, uh, it bothers me that I had to request one. One should be part of our care team. So on March 16th of 2021, I went vegetarian. A year later, in March of 2020, I'm full vegan now. Um, and I believe that has helped. Uh, my PSA is we've been monitoring that. I didn't want to do immediate adjuvant radiation therapy, even though it was being pushed, but I wanted to put that off as much as I could. In May of 2022, I had the Clarify F18 PET scan, which was clean. Again, both my oncologist, Dr. John Hennigan, who I have full trust in, and my urologist, who I still see from twice a year, um, we're pushing that I go to salvage radiation therapy. My point was, if you can't see it, what are you going to radiate? And I don't want you to just radiate the bed, because I've heard scary um,
Okay.
stories about that.
Let me ask you a question, Stephen. In
Yes, sir.
522, when you had the Pylarify, what was your PSA?
It was 0.167. 0.167.
Okay, and did they explain to you that at 0.16 you were unlikely to get a result?
No, they did not, and we did it just for. Um, I guess I asked for it because they kept pushing radiation therapy, and Dr. Hennigan was able to get insurance to cover it because of the 0.167 and I was BRCA positive.
And the BRCA. Now,
Yes.
Dr. Hannigan, what
Yeah.
does he specialize in prostate cancer, or is he a
Yeah.
general medical
No.
oncologist?
He specializes in prostate cancer. So at that point, they sent me to MD Anderson, and they, of course, said, "Yeah, you need to do salvage radiation therapy." I came back and I said, "No, no," and then, um, um,
Who did you see at MD Anderson?
oh, I can't remember. It was a female doctor. Um,
Was
and
it
so
Dr. Was it
go ahead.
Dr. Aparicio?
It may have
Anna.
been. I don't know. It may have been.
Okay.
So anyway, I came back from that, and in August, I guess they finally had convinced me. So August 15th, I believe, I was given, was it Leuprolide? So we began ADT therapy ahead of doing the radiation therapy.
Okay, so
And
let me ask you a couple of questions because we have to move fairly quickly because we've got a
sure, I'm
big group
sorry.
here.
Yep, yeah, I'm sorry.
So you decided to do the SBR, the salvage radiation. They gave you ADT. How long did they talk about giving you ADT for?
Okay, so they gave me a 6-month dose, and
How long did they say it would be altogether?
okay, so they would said that essentially it would be 2 of those, and then I would have 33 treatments.
Okay, so
But
they
the
said 12 months, 12 months of ADT,
Yes, sir,
and they wanted to give you 30 treatments,
33 treatments.
33, and so that sounds like IMRT. And what was the field that they were going to radiate?
The prostate bed,
Just the prostate bed and not the pelvic girdle.
correct.
And who was and where was this to be done?
At UMMC, Dr. Vijay. So
Okay, so now where did you do that?
no, I did not. Because a month later, when I went in to see Dr. Hennigan, my PSA had gone from 0.127 to 0.060. And yet a month later, it was back to 0.020. So I was obviously sensitive, castration sensitive. And so I decided that no, I did not want to do that. So our decision at this time is to, based on the, I believe it was the Embark study. is to do intermittent ADT going forward.
And not to do the radiation?
Correct.
Okay, I'd have to look up the Embark study. I don't know if we've got anybody who, maybe Ben or John, because I don't recall it off the top of my head. But, the fact is that, of course, you're going to respond to the ADT, but that's not why we're giving you the ADT. We're giving you the ADT right now to weaken the cells so we can do radiation.
Mm-hmm.
And, but the radiation that we would suggest is the whole pelvic girdle. I mean, you can't mess around, man. You got 18 out of 18. You got 5 plus 4. And my feeling, if it were me personally, and by the way, I was T3. Most of the guys on here are T4, but I was T3. Is that I would do salvage radiation. I'd throw everything at it, because if it comes back, you don't have a chance of nailing it. You don't have a chance of a durable remission. If you throw everything at it now, you have a chance of a durable remission, which is probably what MD Anderson told you. And so, whilst nobody wants to face the radiation or the hormone therapy, if it's done properly, it can be done. We can minimize side effects. Most of us have undergone it here. Some of us have had side effects, but I always feel that my side effects are better when I'm on this side of the grass than the other side of the grass. And by the way, I was 56 when I was diagnosed.
Okay.
So let me just ask you at this point. I mean, you're coming to us now, sort of following an intermittent. I wish Len were here. Len hasn't come in yet, right? Because the reason I wish Len was here was because he put off his radiation forever and a day. Although he didn't have surgery, but he put it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he regrets putting off the radiation at this point in time. But, if he comes in a little bit later, we'll try and work him in for you. So do you have any questions for us? If not, I'm going to throw it open and let the guys respond to you on how they react to your treatment path.
Okay. So, yeah, the one question I have is what I would like to do if and when I do decide to have radiation therapy is I don't know if you've read up on, or if anyone in the room is aware of the Meridian treatment course, which is only
Right.
five sessions, and it is so targeted that
Right.
if during the
So
treatment your bladder fills up.
let me stop you, okay?
Yes, sir.
First of all, yes, we are. Peter Kafka's still with us, and he got a tutorial from Meridian this week, and
Okay.
we are planning on doing a session. We're not quite sure what, but we're planning on doing a session on Meridian. That's number one. Number two, we have another doc, MD, who went through Meridian, who's very much in favor of it, but he went through it because his focal therapy didn't work, and he went through second line. What we don't have, and we don't know yet, is how successful Meridian can be on recurrence. We don't have enough evidence, and I'll pass it over to Peter in a second, but I've not seen any evidence. The other problem is that the path that they radiate, the field that they radiate is pretty limited. I think they do what's called a rabbit sear, but they don't have the technology yet to do the whole pelvic girdle. And when you've got 5+4, you're carrying BRCA. If it were me, I wouldn't do anything but the whole pelvic girdle. So I don't think Meridian, if I was navigating you, I'd say Meridian is probably not the best for you. But Peter, why don't you speak up about what you learned about using Meridian for recurrence when you spoke to Meridian to ViewRay people earlier this week?
Yeah, I was quite impressed with the presentation. It was two people from Viewer Meridian, and I asked them pretty pointed questions about what it can do and what it can't do, et cetera, et cetera. Their big selling point is that everything in the body is moving and they're tracking in real time, so they can shut down or target things really specifically. You know, even if things are moving around and so forth. And they, you know, I can talk more directly to you at some point, maybe not on this, but
Okay.
I'm so. Let me just say, I was diagnosed not about 9 years ago. I'm a Gleason 9. I had, for a different reason, I had surgery right away. And then I had 11 months later, I had recurrence and I had 39 days of IMRT. I've since had recurrence with proton beam and since had
Okay.
since had chemotherapy. My cancer is genetically driven as well. I have a BRCA mutation, but it's somatic. It's not a germline mutation. I didn't inherit it from my parents, but I did inherit another mutation. So I know that this cancer for me is coming back and coming back and coming back. It keeps coming back. And I've done intermittent hormone therapy over the years. I'm off right now, and now I'm doing immunotherapy. So what is in, sad to say, but what's in your future is going to be management. And it's not, you could do intermittent hormone therapy, and you probably at some point are going to need to do chemotherapy, and at some point you're going to probably need to do a PARP inhibitor, and you're going to have to manage this, and you're going to probably want to get as much mileage out of every treatment as you can. So I don't fault you for not wanting to do something right away, either radiation or wanting to go on intermittent. That's kind of the path I took, and I'm still doing okay 9 years later. I just know I need to manage this because it's going to keep raising its ugly head. So
So
I
Peter,
wish you well.
Let me, I think the issue here with the Meridian, we're not talking about Meridian for primary treatment. We're talking about Meridian for recurrence. And in recurrence, there isn't anything to target. They've got to spread it around to try and get to cover as much as they can. And,
Well,
and that's why I asked Dr. Mark at the time whether it can be used for recurrence because I hadn't heard it, and he said yes they can, and they said yes it can, but I don't know what evidence there is that it's effective for recurrence. We're not talking about primary treatment here.
I know. I asked them that question too, and they assured me that it was good for pelvic girdle radiation. How that works, I don't know, but they
Yeah.
seem to feel it was. They can spread it around and hit the whole pelvic girdle. They said, but
In 5 treatments?
that's what they told me. But God knows what.
Okay,
You know,
well,
I don't know. These were salespeople talking to me, so I don't know. I'd have
right.
to
So
talk.
I
There's a
think
doc
that
at there's a doc at
I think Steve,
UCLA who's an expert.
we would ask you to push more on that. I'd like to get input from my Arizona buddy Ian, who's in Atlanta right now, because he has a somewhat similar situation to you, Stephen. Ian,
Okay.
you have any input on whether you get your radiation or you wouldn't get your radiation?
How about I'm doing it right now, 38 treatments.
Right.
And it's a somewhat different situation.
Well, you turned out to be a 4+4 or 4+5. I can't remember now.
No, I was actually a 3+4, but I had about 12 or 13 hits out of 32 on the biopsy.
And then what? And then when after your radical prostatectomy, your PSA never went down, right?
Yeah, what happened, it didn't go as high as it was before, but that's not the point. You know, the surgery went very well. And after the surgery, they did a PSA test and it was 2.1, which is highly unusual.
Yeah,
So, time to take it seriously.
yeah. So
This is
Steve,
John.
yeah, go ahead, John.
I looked up Embark because Len's not here, and he would have done it by now. Yeah, the reason we haven't heard of it is I don't think it's even been published yet. It's a study that just ended like a couple weeks ago, and all they've had so far as I can find, is a press conference. It's a phase 3 study of enzalutamide plus leuprolide versus leuprolide alone in non-metastatic hormone-sensitive high-risk people
All
like
right,
Stephen.
right.
And it was a positive study. The people on Enza and leuprolide uh, did better in terms of overall survival, and that's probably what convinced Stephen to go ahead and get his first Lupron
Yeah,
shot.
but you know, we know those studies. That's the one with
We, we
enzalutamide.
we could have predicted that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we could tell you that the ARA studies, the Aramark, and the ones with darolutamide. The question is, um, I would suspect, and I don't know, that a lot of people who were on that Embark study had already gotten salvage radiation. I don't know. You'd have to look at that.
No, it was for individuals who had not. They'd had it. If I understood the study correct, what I read, it was
Yeah.
only for those who had had a radical prostatectomy and had not had any salvage or adjuvant radiation.
But they
Okay.
might have had initial radiation instead of an RP. They'd still be allowed in the study.
But they had no. But Embark had no follow up, John,
It's too
as far
soon.
as you can see.
Nope, it's too soon.
No, no. I mean, no, sorry, no radiation, no RT.
Yeah, some of them had radiation instead of an RP at the initial as the initial conditions of the study. There was about 1,000 men in the study.
Okay. Did any of the men also have salvage, or this was what they got immediately on recurrence? Does it indicate if any men had
No,
positive margins afterwards, and if they got salvage radiation?
no, not in this little press release.
It doesn't. So, you know, that's where I'd be digging. It doesn't sound right, just from my experience.
It doesn't seem like
Usually,
an adequate treatment
yeah, I
overall
mean,
to us,
you
Stephen.
usually what you'll see in these studies is they'll take men on recurrence, yes, but those men will have gone through full treatment initially, which might be radiation or it might be surgery plus radiation if there was evidence right away. But you could be right. But like we say, we haven't seen that. Um, but you know, I can only tell you that I've seen way too many guys who skimp on their treatment early on, and then they wonder why they're in a lifelong management situation. And you know, one of the things we don't know with you, and I think I would have, if it were me, I certainly would have done, and we would have navigated you, is we would have said, let your PSA go up to at least zero point 0.5 before you start treatment so we can see if you have metastasis. The fact that you didn't see anything on a polarify at 0.167 is not meaningful, just not meaningful. And you know, in a certain sense, I would say stop your ADT. If it were me, I can't give you medical advice, but I know what I would do right now. I'd stop my ADT completely. I'd let my PSA rise until it was high enough that it could be seen on a PSMA scan, and then I'd do it, and then I'd try and see, where's this coming from? Do I have anything? And then I'd sit down and make the decisions. But given the your genetic profile and your 5+4, I'd be pretty concerned.
So that's the exact same advice my urologist gave me when I saw him 2 weeks ago. Was to let my PSA go up and to a point, I guess, where they could do another PET and then hopefully find it and then target it.
Okay.
And thank you all for your input. I appreciate
Oh
it.
yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I see, interestingly enough, that Ben just put a link in the. Ben, you should put that link in for everybody, not just for the organizers. Can you recopy it in for everybody? And it's a review of that study of yours by a doc called Stephen Friedland. I think I'm confusing him with somebody else. But anyway, I don't think that's bad advice. I think that, and you tell us that Dr. Hannigan is a genitourinary medical oncologist?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, if you've been to MD Anderson and you've got people there and you've got Dr. Hannigan, that's fine. But I think I would approach your situation with a little caution. We hope you'll come back and you can bounce anything off of us. If we don't agree, we're not shy to tell you, but at the end of the day, you're your own best advocate and you need to do what you need to do. Any other final comments before we move away from Stephen?
I would, in my opinion, it's not a wise idea, and in the opinion of doctors whom I've spoken to, it's not a wise idea to wait to game the PSA and try and to game the PSMA PET by waiting. The feeling is that if you don't see anything, then it is most likely to be in the prostate, uh, in the pelvic area, that you have the most to gain if you don't see anything. But the only value of it in this context is to see that it's not futile. If you do have Mets, you shouldn't go ahead. But if you don't see anything, you should go ahead. You have more to lose by waiting than you have to gain.
I have even heard the phrase overwhelmingly likely to be in the pelvic area if there's a metastasis too small for the scan to see.
So in other words, both of you got both Ben and John and Dr. John, you would both feel that moving forward with pelvic girdle radiation would be the most conservative way to go right now. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes.
That's what I did when I was in his situation.
And you're going to find that this is going to be a pattern. Sad to say that you might hit it now, but if the cat's out of the bag, you're going to be doing several PSMA scans and waiting and letting it rise and hitting it again with something different. I mean, that's what I've done at least 3 times already in my journey, because it keeps coming back when you've got a genetic mutation. So get used to it, and you'll be okay. You'll be able to manage this, because there's a lot of tricks in the bag for BRCA.
So I mean,
So what I'm hearing, just quickly, since I had the genetic mutation, there really is no chance at a cure. It's pure management from here on out because it's not going away.
Most likely, is my bet.
I just want to clarify my position. I mean, my position is I would do the salvage radiation. I made that clear. But if I wasn't going to do the salvage radiation, if I wasn't going to do it, then I probably would at least wait to see where the what the PSMA showed at a measurable number. But I wouldn't. I agree with both Ben and John about intervening right away. But if you're not going to intervene, at least see what's going on. Okay, we're going to keep moving. I see Len is here, but I've got to keep moving because we're already an hour in, and we've got people that we can come back to Len and your situation, Stephen, at the
Nice to meet
end.
you, Stephen.
Yeah, come on.
Thank you. Nice
Oh,
to meet you all. Yep.
Stephen? Do we have your email address? Are
I
you?
think you do because I get the notifications for this to my email.
Yes, then we do.
Yep.
We do. Okay, thank you. That's just wanted to make sure. Okay, let's start with since we don't see him very often in this group, and there was something he wanted to talk to us about. Let's start with our revered president of the board, Mr.
Yeah.
Bill Franklin,
All
who
right.
is, like I say, a security and whatever it is officer in his day job. So go ahead, Bill.
All right. How's everybody doing? Stephen, this ties in a little bit to what you're concerned about, and it's not a horror story, like you said. You've heard horror stories about this, but it's not a horror story, right? I had a prostatectomy. I was 51 when I was diagnosed. I was originally rated as a Gleason 7. After testing the prostate they removed, they said I was an 8. They didn't get it all with surgery. I chose radiation, adjuvant radiation, and I immediately went on ADT after they discovered that my PSA was rising post prostatectomy, and mine rose pretty quick. Mine went up, it more than doubled, tripled in like 3 weeks. So the first test was zero point 0.6, and then the next test 2 weeks later was 1.8, and then I was searching around and I went to another doctor. I went to a different oncologist like a couple weeks after that, and it was already like over 3, right? So it was just pumping out. So I went on ADT right away, and then I did the salvage radiation. So I had damage to my intestinal tract from the salvage radiation. So I had radiation proctitis, right? And bleeding, pain, cramping. I got over it. That's fine. So this leads me to my current situation, which ties in with the pelvic floor therapy stuff. Or, so I recently had a really bad, not really bad, it was actually kind of mild, but it was consistent for 3 to 4 weeks. A lot of cramping, pain, and I had a mild infection in my intestinal tract. And because I had the damage from the radiation treatment, that one section apparently was affected worse, than my regular if I'd never had that damage. So they still don't even know what it is. They tested me for everything, C. diff and all those things. I gave samples of every fluid, blood, everything. So and they tested everything. So but I'm gonna have a colonoscopy and endoscopy soon anyway. So there's the damage could happen, right? But as Rick said, I had a lot of side effects. I had things that I had to work through with my prostate cancer. But 8 years later, I'm 50 now. I'll be 60 this year. I'm in great shape. I'm enjoying my life, and my side effects are manageable. So if it turns out I have to do something about this section that was damaged, then I'll do something about this section that was damaged. But my prostate cancer has been undetectable since my initial treatment and the adjuvant and the ADT. However, I don't have any BRCA, no mutations or genetic germline or somatic or anything like that. So, But what did happen during the bout of the intestinal issues was my urinary incontinence came back. Not to
Oh,
any great degree, but it did come back. And I was told by the GI doctor that having all the problems with your intestinal tract and a lot of defecating a lot and diarrhea and all that, it can affect all your pelvic muscles. And so we don't have some of the external urinary sphincter that was connected to our prostate. It's gone when we get a prostatectomy, right? We don't have it anymore. That's your voluntary sphincter for urination. So that's how you can hold your urine before you have a prostatectomy. After prostatectomy, you have to learn how to hold it by using your pelvic floor muscles. So, as I was saying, someone in here, there was about 4 or 5 of us on before everybody else joined, but someone was saying they did pelvic floor therapy before their surgery at the recommendation of somebody. But I don't remember who that was, but it doesn't look like the individual. Was that you, Mark? Yeah. Oh, there he is. Yeah. I got a whole bunch of cameras on my screen here. And so I did it post prostatectomy, and it helped me recover the urinary function. But so I would pose the question to the group if anybody's had like any kind of bout of a GI problem that brought back old symptoms from a prostatectomy or radiation. And my second not a question but a comment would be is yeah, if your GI doc or your urologist or anybody doesn't know about pelvic floor therapy, uh, tell them what it is. Learn about it if you don't know. Tell them what it is and get them to write you a script for it because your insurance company will more than likely pay for it. So that was my question was, has anybody's GI tract problems brought back other symptoms like urinary incontinence or anything like that? David?
David, speak up, man.
Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, I have Crohn's disease and colitis, which are one of the same thing. But when I have to go number two, I cannot hold my urine. I've got to literally put my hand down my pants and grab my penis to stop the incontinence or to stop
Yep.
that issue. It's a problem for me.
Coincidentally, my daughter was recently diagnosed with Crohn's, and she's doing a treatment with an infusion every 8 weeks called Remicade, and she's had 2 so far, and she has a third one scheduled in another week or so, and just those 2 infusions have done great things for her. I mean, she's vastly improved. It put her Crohn's into kind of a semi-remission. So,
Yeah, I've done the same thing with Stelara. I just started
yep.
Stelara. It's really making a difference. But I really need to work on the incontinence, and I couldn't be on the webcast the other night, so I'm going to have to listen to that in the next day or two.
Yeah, I would recommend you get a script to a pelvic floor therapist.
Okay.
I did it, like I said, I did it post prostatectomy, and again, another coincidence of my life. I walked in there, and my neighbor was standing in front of the counter. A young lady lived down the street and around the corner. I was like, "Hey, Hey, you going to physical therapy too?" She goes, "No, I'm a physical therapist. I work here." I said, "Oh, well, I'm here for this and this." And she goes, "Oh yeah, I know. I saw your name. I'm going to be your physical therapist." So,
Yeah.
so she was hooking up my neighbor was hooking up the electrodes all around my private region and zapping me. So
How was that?
it actually it's not painful zapping. It's just like enough to contract the
No,
muscles
no,
down
no.
there.
I mean,
And
how was it having your young female neighbor?
it's no no
The
no
topic
problem.
came up last week, and so I wondered.
Yeah.
Well, our
So,
kids had played together, so we knew each other, and it's like it wasn't a big deal for me. Having I don't know if it was my military background or being raised in a big family with 8 kids and other extended family members in the home. We normally had 13, 14 people living in a house, so uh, you know, anybody seeing me naked, I don't care. So
I see that Julian has his hand raised, and then I think we're just going to have to move on and to keep getting through everybody.
yeah,
But
I'm
Julian,
good, Rick.
Just something quick. I've been seeing a physical therapist for about 6 weeks now because I have urinary incontinence, and she's helped me quite a bit. exercises help, and she does some massaging. And again, I'm not shy about that. She wonders if it bothers me, and it doesn't. But I'm better.
Oh, wow. It's made a difference then. It's made a big difference for you.
Yes, yes, and getting
Wow.
better.
Can I add something, Rick?
Go ahead quickly.
Just that I also saw a therapist after my surgery for incontinence. They would not do the electrical stimulation or current on me because I had possibly metastatic cancer, or I did have metastatic cancer, and so they wouldn't do it on me.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure of the implications of that, or, how metastatic interferes with the various options for treatment. But so no. Anybody else know anything about if you're metastatic, how it interferes with pelvic floor therapy? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I just put the webinar, the pelvic floor webinar. It's posted on our website, and I just put the link there. So if you click on that link, it'll open in your browser. You can watch it later or tomorrow or whenever, bookmark it whenever you like. It's also right on the front page of our website under recent news. It's right there. So I recommend watching it. I thought Dr. John and Kim did a fantastic job, and I think it's going to be very helpful for a lot of you. It's not. I just want to say again, it's not 100% about prostate cancer, and it's not 100% about men. It's about both. And the questions particularly were really good and focus on both men and women. And I recommend don't give up if you feel that they're only talking about women, because they're not. Okay. I'm moving along here. Gao Shan, you had a question, I know, that you put to me today.
Yes, Rick. Yeah, I wanted to talk about my testosterone tests. I started my journey in November of 2020 and started out with biclutamide, but before I did that, I had both my PSA and testosterone tested in November, middle of November, and my testosterone level was 799. And then on 12/1, I started with my first Eligard injection, which I just finished in December 21st of 2022. And after my first test before I started the Eligard, it dropped down to 23. I checked it 3 months later. And then it dropped down another 6 months later to 21. Then one thing I should mention, I've had my work done in both Panama City, and also OHSU in Portland, Oregon. And the next two tests I had at OHSU, and they were less than 3. And now that I'm 6 months since my last testosterone test at OHSU, I had it tested in Panama and it registered 26. And I remember in some of the discussions, so in other words, it went up from 3, less than 3 to 26. But I remember in the discussions, and Rick has said this before, we want your PSA to stay low after you go out off of Eligard and you've had your 30 some treatments of IBRT, that we want your testosterone to rise up, but keep your PSA low. So I'm just wondering if my testosterone level was less than 3 in September of 2022, and I just had it tested, it went to 26. Is that a normal change, or it's only a little change, or it's a lot of change? I just would like to know
Okay.
what other people have experienced.
I'm going to ask Captain Joe to answer that. because he's had some experience. Are you
Okay.
still with us, Joe? Yes. Go
Yep.
ahead.
Yeah, here we go. Well, first off, the normal range is anywhere from like 250 to 600, so it's a
Right,
big range.
right.
Recovery can be extensive or time consuming depending on age and treatment. Um, you know, so if you're the older you are, the longer it takes you for to get the testosterone back. However, in my particular case, which is what I was going to bring up anyway, so uh, I've been 9 months off of ADT, and my testosterone was down to negligible at that point. And the uh, the one nice thing that was being promoted was that Orgovix was going to let you come back quicker. Well, it must be because in that 9 months I'm back up to 366. So
Okay.
I'm quite satisfied with that. But it's one of those things they tell you it does take a while to recover. Lupron apparently can take you a lot longer, and you shouldn't get too upset if it even takes you more than a year. Again, depending on your age.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
and and what
I'll turn 70 in July of this year.
Well,
and
I'm going to
and
I'm
Joe,
going to
your PSA level? What's your
my
PSA level?
my PSA level is 0.16.
Okay.
I have a comment to make too. I know whenever I read literature from other countries, I'm always confused because their units of
Yes.
measurement are different. I know
Yes.
Canada throws me off all the time. So it's worth finding out what units Panama is using. In
Yeah,
the
well,
United
Panama, my test in Panama was 0.26 ng per milliliter, and Rick pointed out that would be 26. But what's interesting, the previous tests I had done in Panama were all done in ng /DL. It was just this last test that they did at ng/ML. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened or the lab changed their designation. So Rick
And
pointed that out to me.
yeah, thank you, and thank you, Dr. John. And by the way, when we talk Panama City with Gaoshan, we're actually talking Panama City, Panama, not Panama City, Florida.
Right.
Just to be clear. Just to be clear. I see I see our Mississippian nodding his head there. I just wanted to make it very clear. Um, anyway, I mean, I think the answer is you it can take a long time for your PSA in my own for your testosterone to return. For me, at the age of about 60, when I came off, or 59, I think it took a good 8, 9 months. I didn't see anything, so don't be surprised. But do watch your PSA. It needs to stay low and allow your testosterone to come back, and then you'll see where you are. Any other final comments on testosterone and recurrence before we leave?
Just to add,
Bill.
just to add that in my case on I'm pretty happy with the 366 at a 9 month point, given the fact that I'm 78 years old as well.
Hey, Rick,
That's good.
I wanted to
Yes.
make a quick comment. At 85, I was getting Lupron every 30 days and then stopped for about 45 days, and my testosterone went from less than 6 to 400 that fast.
Wow.
Wow.
That's going to be a record. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Of course, my PSA started up with it too.
I got one little comment on the test. So I talked to a guy a couple 3 months ago, and he's a missionary down in Nicaragua. He came up to the States, got a prostatectomy, went back to Nicaragua, got a PSA test 3 months later. It's 5. So he talks to my cousin. He calls me. He's panicked. So he comes back to the States, and he goes to Salt Lake City and gets a PSA test, and it's less than 0. Or I mean 0. So you just got to be kind of careful where you're getting your tests. scared this poor kid half to death, you know. I'll call him a kid because he's behind
There,
me in school, but I'd just be
there are
careful where I got my tests. You
there
want
are
to get the same
multiple
lab all the time.
there are
Yeah,
multiple assays
all
being
my
made.
labs, all my labs
Guys, I'm
have
going
been
to call a halt on this discussion only because
okay.
we've got
Thank
a
you.
lot of guys and we're sort of covering old ground at this point in time. But just keep an eye on it and 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 um and keep us posted. I'm going to go to Al
Thank you.
Latimer. Pleasure, Al.
Yes, hi. Um, a couple things. One, real quick, we talked last time about adding B6 to help with the neuropathy. Do you know what dose you're using? The doctor wasn't really helpful in that area.
No.
Yeah.
I'd have to. I'm moderating today, and so I can't shut my screen and run over and take a look at my pills. I want
Yeah.
to say
I,
they're
I
big
my
pills.
yeah, my
Go
doc
ahead.
has me taking 100 milligrams 3 times a day of B6.
100 milligrams 3 times a day. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Yeah. Personally, I've been kind of alternating twice a day and 3 times a day because too much B6 can make things worse. But whether it's helped, it's hard to say. But I've heard from others that B6 can help.
It's definitely helped me. I mean, this year, my neuropathy has not been quite as painful, and now I'm sort of moving out of it anyway because the weather gets warmer. But it's definitely helped me, and I plan to keep taking it on. And there must be 100 milligram pills, is what I'm thinking, according to Dr. Bob. But I'll confirm with you. I'll confirm with you offline. I'm making a note to confirm with you offline, Al.
so in my case, I'm trying to prevent it from getting worse, which brings up my bigger question is that I've had 7 um, chemotherapy treatments now. Um, the neuropathy has been getting progressively more noticeable, although there's I'm not in any pain yet. I don't want to I don't want to get there. Um, on the other hand, the docetaxel is becoming less and less effective. The curve of my PSA went down rapidly at the beginning, and now it has pretty flattened out. So I guess I'm in a stage where I'm going to be competing between the effectiveness of the chemo and the side effects. And I'm wondering, so I'm going to have a long discussion with a doctor about that next week, but I wanted to get you guys' take on that at this point.
Where's your PSA?
10. It started at 65. It's down to 10.
Okay, well,
But it only went down 0.5 this last time.
okay, so I see a Ken on the phone. I'm hoping that's Ken Anderson because if it is, he is the man to answer this question. Ken, is that Ken Anderson? Come in, Ken. Well, if you're there, put your picture on or what have you. We'll come back to you. Um, it is a real challenge to trade off the side effects of docetaxel or chemo versus um, how much good it's having. But it seems like if you've bottomed out at around 10, then maybe it is worth having that discussion with Dr. Belusic next week. Anybody have any comments on the trade-off? Anyone who's been through a lot of chemo and when to trade it off?
I mean, I only did 6 rounds and it's, it dropped, then it started to level down. But even after the sixth, it kept going down for a few months. And lately I've been ticking up. But, if you're tolerating the chemo and it can be,
just because it's slowing down the progress or the decrease doesn't mean it's not necessarily helping.
Well, if the PSA is just flat, I mean, that's one thing. I imagine at one point it will start to rise again. During this current cycle, after the third dose, I went 6 weeks before I had the fourth, and um, during the last 3 weeks of that, the PSA went up again. So it didn't. Um, I expect as soon as I do stop that my PSA is going to start rising again pretty fast, pretty quickly.
In
So
my case, I was going to jump into my case, had many trials of chemo. It works at first and then it failed. I think I went down to 20, 25 PSA. And then I was the first patient that got onto Pluvicto at UCLA. And I guess I was going to talk about it when it was my turn, but the chemo just stopped. And then I had the neuropathy. I think I have neuropathy, never been diagnosed. The doctor said I should take alpha lipoic acid. I still have tightness in my legs. I also have edema, which is really weird. Edema in my right leg only, which is very strange. You think you'd get it in both legs, right? In one leg. But my point is that the chemo just sometimes wears off. And then what do you do after you're done with the chemo? So, but that does
Well,
happen.
one thing with chemo that we do know is that you can try it again. You can come back to it. And certainly with prostate cancer, we know that the cabazitaxel or Jevtana is for a lot of men has much lower side effect profile than the docetaxel. So, it might be a plan to ease off for a while, and then if you need to start up again, Al, to talk about cabazitaxel. I'm going to check one more time. Ken, are you with us? Guess not. I guess not.
one other thing that Dr. Schultz has been suggesting is I add carboplatin to the docetaxel for some kind of a turbo effect. Has anyone done that?
Well, let me just first ask before we answer that, because we do have people that have done it. Do you have any? I forget. Do you have any unusual mutations?
Well, several years ago I tested positive for BRCA2, but the more recent tests were all negative. So I don't know that first test was really that accurate.
Was that a somatic? That was a somatic BRCA2, not a germline BRCA2, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So,
but I had germline too, and it didn't at MD Anderson. It didn't show up in that test.
Right. So you don't have a germline. Yeah. I mean, Len. I know Len. It showed up and then it goes away, and that's possible. I always get concerned about. Well, we'll just add something because it's like, chucking spaghetti at the wall, and these treatments are serious treatments.
Yeah,
and
no
I mean,
kidding.
I know that Dr. Schultz is more willing to do that than a lot of other doctors are. But is Peter still with us or not? Peter
No.
Cap. Peter. So Peter's definitely done both. Anyone else done a platin as well as a taxane at the same time?
I did it for a few months, but it was too much. I had to stop.
Mm.
Too many side effects.
Yep.
Well,
I think I would. You've got a good doc there. I mean, maybe you've got to decide who you want to listen to, but I mean, I think that maybe given how well you've basically done with docetaxel, you're starting to feel the neuropathy, take a little break for a while and then come back to it is what I would be discussing with Belusic, and maybe come back with cabazitaxel. And when was the last time you did a somatic test?
I'm trying to think now. pre-COVID, I think, was the last time it was done.
Well, it's time for another one. Ask Dr. Belusic if you can get another. You could probably do a liquid biopsy at this
No,
point.
actually, it was in 21. I had both done at MD Anderson.
Right. So,
Was
it's enough time has passed. Talk to Belusic about doing a liquid biopsy, somatic test, and see if anything shows up.
okay. Okay.
All right. I'm keeping one eye on the clock here and trying to move along. We're going to go to Ian next. Ian,
Yeah. Hey, Rick. Hey, everybody.
what's
You
on your
heard from me a
mind?
little. Okay, you heard from me a little bit earlier, so I'm going to keep this brief. I'm in a salvage radiation situation. I'm on treatment 3 out of 35. I noticed it's a very new facility. I noticed they're using a CyberKnife machine, which I thought was a bit odd to do this type of conventional treatment. And the question I have is the treatments are taking a very, very long time. And I'm wondering, what's reasonable for these types of treatments?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I think first of all you've got to sit down with them and find out exactly what they're doing, because
Right.
using CyberKnife is SBRT, stereotactic body radiation, and so it's a high dose machine.
Mm-hmm.
And now I guess it's also possible they could be delivering IMRT through this CyberKnife machine. I don't know, but it's hard for us to answer if we don't know exactly what they're giving you. I was not aware at this point that you can do sorry, one more question. What are they radiating? Is it the pelvic bed? Is it the pelvic girdle, or is it a rabbit's ear pattern?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. It's just they going around my bladder. It's kind of a pretty big circle they're going around.
Well, again, you need to find out what the pattern is. I mean, we would hope it would be the full pelvic girdle,
Okay.
but again, we don't know. They had some trials a while back in Carbone in Wisconsin doing fractionated SBRT, but I think that's really what you've got to find out a little more and come back next week
You've
and
been up to.
talk to us. Anybody want to comment on this?
Is it okay to use CyberKnife for this sort of thing? I thought CyberKnife, is it a brand or is CyberKnife a treatment?
It's a
That's what I'm
brand.
confused.
It's a brand of SBRT,
Okay.
stereotactic body radiation therapy. And in the past, as far as we know, and I'm going to put a caveat in at the end, but as far as we know, the technology isn't there yet to use stereotactic body radiation for salvage treatment.
Okay.
It's still being tested. Now, I did learn recently that there is a proton form of SBRT, but again, I don't think that's being used for salvage treatment. Anybody, Ben or anybody else, anybody know whether you can use anybody's using SBRT for salvage adjuvant treatment?
Rick, I remember years ago, just before I had my radiation, I saw a doctor in Flushing, Queens, New York.
The name escapes me now, but he was very well known. He's published papers on SBRT treatment of prostate cancer. And when I went to him, he knew that I had pelvic lymph node spread. So he knew I was interested in the whole pelvic region in addition to the prostate being radiated. And he said, yeah, I can do that with SBRT. I said, well, is it superior to IMRT? And he said, well, I wouldn't say it's superior. It's just more elegant, whatever that meant. So I think his name was Kaplan, although I'm not sure. So, I mean, this wasn't salvage, but it was treatment of the whole pelvic region with SBRT. And this was back in 2016. So it was being done, or at least he was doing it.
Mm-hmm. How many treatments are they talking about, Ian?
35.
Yeah, I think it might be a machine that says CyberKnife, but my guess is they're not giving you CyberKnife.
Yeah, the doc said to me, and I've actually got his phone number, so I can talk to him. Okay, yeah, he said it's not really CyberKnife. He said they're just using a CyberKnife machine for this other purpose.
Now you tell me.
Yeah, but it depends who you talk to. They don't talk English, You know how it is. They don't speak your language.
Yeah, you just got to push them, and if you don't understand, you say I don't understand. But you've got to ask him: is it SBRT or is it IMRT?
Okay.
Intensity modulated radiation therapy or stereotactic body. You've got to ask him. But my guess is it's a CyberKnife machine that's delivering something other than CyberKnife treatment when it treats you.
Yes. That'd be my guess too. But I will find out more and I can get back to you.
Okay, let us know, and make sure you do your walk-in every day because that's going to make a big difference. You're going to feel less tired. Get yourself out and half an hour walk or some sort of exercise. Keep that blood moving.
Every day, Rick. I'm in great shape, honestly.
You're my man. Okay. Okay, and come back to Arizona soon. All right?
It'll be a while because these treatments take an hour each. That's why I'm asking. I've never heard of this kind of thing being an hour. So he said he can get it down.
I don't know why it's an hour because usually it shouldn't be an hour. So I don't know what's going on. You got to find out more and come back next Tuesday and tell Peter Kapker about it.
The average treatment would be how long? 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, I'll go and talk to the doc again.
Okay. Okay. I'm moving down my list. I think I've still got about 5 or 6 people just to give you an idea. Dr. Bob, what was on your mind?
Okay, I'll keep it quick. I just have a little bit of a report. So scans and labs about 2.5 weeks ago. My white count, which has been in the 2s, finally is in the 3s, almost 6 months after the last chemo. But my PSA has been ticking up. It's gone up more than doubled since January. So my doc has switched me from half a milligram or from 5 milligrams prednisone to half a milligram dexamethasone. So hopefully that'll make the abiraterone work better. She had her fellow present to the tumor board, and they felt that because my scans are all stable, even though my PSA has gone up, that I'm not progressing. But if I do, their opinion was to look into Xofigo, which I have a consult in a couple weeks, and Keytruda because I have MSI high, and just a little nervous about the PSA rising, but other than that, I feel good.
So what level is it rising from to?
So middle of January it was 0.48. Middle of March, it was 1.16. And I'll go in a couple weeks to get it checked
Okay,
again.
hold on. Let me just get that down. I'm trying to do about 10 things at the same time here. So it was it was in 123. The PSA was how much?
Middle of January, it was 0.48. And by middle of March, it was 1.16. It's still pretty low, but it's more than doubled in 2 months.
Yeah. Well, I guess I will tell you, we're not big fans of we're not big fan. I'm not a big fan of I am not. I don't want to say we because the other guys might be of Xofigo, and especially today when Pylarify is available,
Yeah.
it
Well,
seems to.
her point was that, Pluvicto may not be available till the fall or even later, and if that's the case, Xofigo could be used and still could do, Pluvicto somewhere in the future. That, it's just a consult.
All right, so maybe this is the time when I give my Pluvicto update. Um, since I find myself on behalf of ANCAN right in the middle of it, but we are putting as much pressure as we can on the three parties to sit round a table and get this sorted out, because there's no reason for this shortage to be continuing when we feel that there are solutions. And the three parties are Novartis, the Society for Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging, and the FDA. And I've spoken personally to all three parties. The problem right now, in my view, is that each one of those parties is pushing the buck to the next one. And in a conversation with Novartis on Friday, I said to them, why don't you put in a proposal to switch your excess research production to commercial? And they said, well, we don't want to take time away from getting the commercial proposal through. Now, when I spoke to the FDA said, yeah, we would approve the excess level of Pluvicto. In other words, the factory in Melbourne, New Jersey was approved to provide research doses before this was fully approved. And some people are still getting research doses. Somebody on this call right now, or who was on a call earlier, is getting a research dose. And a year ago, right before the approval, the factory in Melbourne, New Jersey was producing a lot more of research doses. So we're saying take that difference, switch it to commercial. That'll free up X number of doses a day for you. And it's a win-win. You can charge for those doses and more patients get it. And Novartis is saying, yeah, but if we start doing that, then we'll lose traction on the permanent resolution. Well, that's not what the FDA told me. The FDA said they'd look at this very favorably. We also said to them, how about switching doses? If somebody isn't there to get a dose, then let's switch that dose to another person. And let's also talk about triage considerations. And again, Novartis said, well, the FDA is not going to allow us to do that. I think the FDA will allow them to do this during this triage period. So what we're trying to do is get everybody to sit around the same table. All of this is information your Dr. Bob, is not going to have, but we're really working on it now. Would I do Xofigo in anticipation of doing Pluvicto later? There are studies out there right now looking at using Xofigo and Pluvicto. I'm not sure if they're sequential together. I don't know enough about them. I know one of the guys on the call might know. But I would just try and hold on a little bit and see if we can't bring more pressure on Pluvicto. But that's my view. Anybody else want to comment on using Xofigo now versus waiting on the Pluvicto?
Yeah, and again, this was just a consult for future use kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Anybody
Rick,
want to comment on? Go ahead, Len.
yeah. I was part of a patient language summary comparing, not comparing, but supposedly helping physicians know where to position Xofigo or where to use it in sequence. And the thrust of the paper was that it could be and has been used before Pluvicto. Now, I think it was last week when I moderated, my intro had to do with a study that was being conducted where they used both Xofigo and Pluvicto at the same time.
Right.
And they were hoping to take advantage of both the alpha and the beta radiation. The alpha radiation supposedly tackles micrometastases in the bone better than the beta radiation of Pluvicto. And I think there's an ongoing trial where they're recruiting, but I'm not sure.
I think in Australia, Len.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's
I'd have to go back and read my own intro. I don't remember.
I think at Peter Mac. I think.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Well, it originated there, but possibly there's a U.S. trial. I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Could be. But keep a strong eye on it. I mean, also the good news is, I think you said that your white count is starting to come back. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been in the low 2s and now I'm in the low 3s. So that's good.
You know, what we really want to do is we want SNMMI to put out some triage definitions. Who's urgent? I mean, you might well fall into that urgent, a guy that we need to catch right now. But they're just saying, well, we don't want to talk about, if we can't switch doses, what does it matter? And we're saying, well, will Novartis respected is what they're saying. And when I talk to Novartis says, well, we can't switch doses if they're ordered for one person. The FDA hasn't approved it. I said, well, the FDA will approve. Have you asked the FDA? No. So what they've got is a regulatory affairs group who doesn't want to do any more work than they have to do. And that really bugs me. And we're talking at pretty high levels. And I frankly think this regulatory affairs group, somebody needs to put the strong arm on them. And that's why I'm trying to get everybody to sit around the same table so that my lady at the FDA can say, yeah, send us something quick. Yeah, we would look on that favorably. But everybody's pushing it off. And of course, nobody likes triage because the whole point of triage is there's not enough for everybody. We got to move it around from person to person. And, everybody's got to stretch, and that includes Novartis, it includes the FDA, it certainly includes SNMMI, and we're just pushing to try and make that happen. And no promises, but it ain't going away. And I don't know who else is. I don't think that there's anybody advocating like we are in this Pluvicto. And I've actually even had some major media outlets contacting me recently for comment, and I'm sort of hanging off because I don't want to, excuse my French, piss anybody off right now, because as most of you know, I'm very good at doing that. So I'm just being careful. But yeah, we're on it.
Oh,
So
Rick,
I don't know. Yeah.
I just need to squeeze in one more comment to Bob about
Sure.
Xofigo. Now that I recall, the recommendation was, if possible, to use Xofigo before chemo.
Okay.
As you've experienced, chemo knocks down your immune system, and Xofigo is going to do a number on it again. So
Yeah,
in your
that's a really
case,
good
probably
point.
Xofigo is not such a great idea. I don't know if it was a contraindication or just an advisory to have it done before chemo, not after.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the tumor board primary next step would be you know, ICI, checkpoint inhibitor, because of my genomics. And I think she's looking at something like Xofigo to clean things up if that works well.
Yeah, sounds like good advice.
okay. All right, it looks like we lost Herb Courtney. I don't see him and he had to run, but he did see Dr. Reddick and he is getting some treatment advice from Dr. Reddick, and that's a good thing. We've gotten him to the right guy, and I'll drop him a line. I'll just write his name down so I don't forget for later. But they're putting him on darolutamide, so that's great with Lupron. Let me see. We still have 2 or 3 people. Joe Gallo, anything you wanted to add from before? Captain Joe, are you there? All right, we'll come back to Captain Joe. Don Eisner, you are there. I see you. You just got to turn your mic on. Good man. Okay.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm strongly considering bailing on Pluvicto. The first 4 sessions didn't have really side effects, but for some reason on the 5th one, that is ballooning the side effects on Pluvicto, the synergistic issues from going back to the chemo. So I'm going to meet with Dr. Scholes in Marina Del Rey in about 2 weeks or so. I will see what my next PSA is. My PSA went from 55 to 25. Great, but that's what it was on chemo. And if a miracle happens and my PSA goes down to 10 or 12, hey, maybe I'll take the 6th one, but why torture myself? I'll go on some other treatment after I stop the Pluvicto. It's just because I have other issues. It's not directly involved from the Pluvicto. It goes back about 10 years, affecting other parts of my body. So that'll be an update I'll have in a couple of weeks for you.
So, amongst the folks who have done a bunch of Pluvicto here, and I'm thinking Mr. Latimer and others, anybody want to comment on side effects after you said you've completed 4 now, Don?
Well, I've had 4.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Am I talking now? Oh,
Yep.
I've had 4. No noticeable side effects. Nothing.
I take it back. It's working.
When I got the 5th, about 2 days later, brain fog and all kinds of things were happening. Even there were I hear some water dribbling. I don't know what that is. It's like a sprinkler's going off. Anyway, yeah. So after the 5th one, then it just mushroomed. Everything that was happening before that were lying low, tremendous. So that's
Okay.
why I'm going to talk to Scholes and see if he thinks I don't really want to do it again. I don't like brain fog. I can't. There's certain things I cannot do right now.
Okay. So
To be
anybody want to comment? Anybody want to comment on what happens when you're getting through to the end of your Pluvicto? I see Al may want to, but he's there you are, Al. Come on in.
Hi. Hi. So I had my PSA dropped a lot the first 4 treatments, and then the last 2, it didn't really drop at all. The only side effect I had was the the fifth and sixth treatment, the dry mouth and the taste issues just became intolerable. And I would not have done any more treatments after 6, except that was the last one in that series anyway. But that was really the only, I had some fatigue afterwards, but other than that, I tolerated, other than the dry mouth and the taste issues, I tolerated it pretty well.
Anyone else who's had the full series of Pluvicto on the call right now?
By the way, Don, it was also at UCLA.
What's that?
I said
Yeah,
my Pluvicto was done at UCLA also.
Right, it's very pleasant, as I mentioned, because you can walk right outside, 150 feet away, go to Starbucks, and you're finished. That's great.
Okay.
Side effects.
Anyone else with experience of Pluvicto on the call right now? Well, I guess, one of the things that we have seen with Pluvicto, and you may be in that category, is sort of the reverse of what Al reported, where we don't see anything for the first 3 or 4, and then all of a sudden it takes off and it has significant impact towards the back end. When is your last one due?
Mine, April 27th.
April 27th.
It'll be number 6.
I think and are you planning on getting a PSA test done between now and then?
Exactly. Around the 15th, I will see, because I'm hearing side effects. All kinds of strange noises here. Yeah, I figure on the 15th, the 18th, I'll see if the PSA went down, and maybe it's going down dramatically because of the massive change in my condition. If it goes down to 10 or 15, yeah, I'll do another one. But if it's still hovering around 20, 23, what's the point of getting the 6th one and suffering needlessly?
And who did Dr. Schultz order the Pluvicto for you, or do you have another doc at UCLA too?
No, he orders it, and then when I go there, there's a Dr. Andrew Kwan who kind of coordinates it.
Okay. Well,
Treatment.
I think you have to then, I think your plan is reasonable. And see how you do on the 15th and tell us,
You got it.
See how you do on the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any other input they'd like to give to Don? You're all a quiet lot today. Okay, Don, I think you've got the right plan, but definitely check that PSA around the 15th and see where it is. And let's keep our fingers crossed, and maybe you'll see another dive. Okay, Mr. Gallo, you're back. Captain Gallo, you're back with us. Did you need to talk about anything else?
No, the update was what I got the opportunity to give just a little bit earlier.
Okay, and where was that testosterone? 360?
366 right now, yep.
And your PSA was 0.16?
Correct.
Now, is that PSA up or down from last time?
The last time 3 months ago was 0.11. So it's very, very minimal change. And, that's also got to be considered in light of the fact that I was radiation treatment.
Okay. And how often are you getting your PSA checked?
3 months.
Would you consider going to a shorter period of time right now?
Might do that.
I think that if you would, I think I would. It's gone from 0.11 to 0.16. It's not a big jump, but given that your testosterone's coming back, I think I'd I'd be looking at it a little more closely, just keeping an eye on it, Joe.
Yeah, the testosterone 3 months ago was 270. So, yeah, I agree. I'll set
Okay.
up another one with him. You know, Guy been very cooperative.
Okay, so I think I keep anybody else, Len or Ben or Dr. John, anybody else have any input for Captain Joe?
Yeah, I think I would agree with you, Rick. Maybe check the PSA every 6 weeks instead of 3 months. Split the difference there. It's covered. Why not?
It's
Yeah,
easy to get
thanks,
that
Len.
done. It's easy to get it done. Yep.
Okay. All right, Joe. PSA. I think we only have one more person left, which is Philip.
Thank you, Rick. I'm not sure if it's still available, but is it a good idea to keep my first biopsy? It's been about
Um,
7 years.
well,
Yeah,
go ahead, Dr. John.
yeah. Why not? I mean, they're probably gonna. Is there talk about it being discarded?
No, I don't know if there's a practice amongst uh, in the industry, if there's like a standard that says, you have to keep biopsies for a certain amount of time. I don't know if that's how it works in the industry or not. I, like I said, I haven't checked, but I
I
just wanted to know before I approach them if it's recommended to keep it.
maybe Len or Rick will know, but I
There,
think and hope that they'll keep it forever because you might want to do genetic testing on it if you haven't done it already.
they
And
don't
Uh,
discard them. They keep them forever. If they could find them. Sometimes they get
okay.
lost, but they keep them forever for medical legal reasons.
Okay. Okay.
I would have them. There you go. You got Dr. Jack and Dr. John both saying keep them. I think we'll go with their advice, and
Thank you.
I would have them. I would have them keep them, Philip, if it were me.
Thank you. The other question, if I may,
Yes.
uh, I'm guessing that there's a PSA range, but is there do you have a recommendation or consensus on when recurrence occurs?
Well, the definition, I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, somebody will, is 3 successive rises in your PSA. Is that, am I still right on that, guys? When not on hormone therapy?
I've only had robotic surgery 5 years and 5 months ago, and I'm the gentleman that's at 0.090.
So this is Steve. I always read that BCR, biochemical recurrence, the nadir for that was 0.2.
Uh, well, that's not necessarily I mean, it's really 3 successive increases. Is there a nadir? In other words, is it 3 successive increases over 0.2? Um, I've not heard that, but maybe has anybody heard that it's 3 successive increases over 0.2?
I think the word nadir is only used for people who have had radiation. And
Mm-hmm.
people who have prostatectomies, we don't use that term because our goal is not just a bottom, but a non-detectable if we are lucky enough to see that. And I heard the same thing as Rick said. I know my particular oncologist probably won't pay much attention until I reach point 2. That's when he'll, I don't know if that's when he'll term it a recurrence, but that's when he'll take action.
That's
Okay.
consistent, by the way, with my med-onc as well. He said if it comes up to 0.2, then it'll be time to consider doing a scan.
And that's for post prostatectomy.
No, radiation.
Oh,
The definition at Sloan Kettering for a reoccurrence is anything once it's detectable, it's a reoccurrence. For 5 years, I was, below 0.2. And then once I went to 0.2 on 2 consecutive occasions over a 6-month period, then I became eligible for a PSMA scan. And that was the first one I had April 1st, 2021. So detectability was defined by just being above, just detectable. It was below 0.5. It was below 0.05 for 15 years, and then it was 0.06 one day, and I was then considered detectable, and then it went to 0.08, slowly rising over 5 years. Now it's 2.02.
Was that with surgery or radiation?
Surgery only.
Yeah, I think, see, with surgery, you're assumed to be starting out pretty close to ground zero. With radiation, the comment there is that
Right.
you still have a prostate.
Right.
So you will be generating some PSA.
Right.
So what is the definition then for surgery I see Ben's been putting a bunch of stuff in the chat, but it's hard for me to absorb it whilst I'm trying to moderate. Ben, do you want to summarize what the definition might be for surgery and what the definition might be for radiation?
So, I put up I put these things up. I had them stored for exactly this moment because this question comes up, but I'm looking at the first one for radical prostatectomy, and it says 0.1, and I think it should say 0.2. So I don't know where I got this from. So that's I'm hastily looking to see where I got this thing from. Um, I know. Well, the second one I think is pretty solid. This is for radiation.
And what does it say, the second one for radiation?
Increase by 2 or more of the nadir.
From the
Um,
nadir. Increase 2 or more from the nadir. And for the and for the surgery, Philip, I think we're sort of saying maybe, and this is maybe where Stephen Wade is correct. It's not so much 3 successive increases. That's probably radiation. It is maybe more in lines with 0.2 or above. I don't know. Am I putting words into people's mouths, or I mean, what do we advise men in terms of biochemical recurrence for radiation for surgery?
well, for surgery, I mean, technically, anything that's not zero means that that some prostate tissue got missed. So
Right.
anything above non-detectable is something to watch and be concerned about. But as far
Right.
as what does it have to reach before somebody's going to actually take action, um, it's probably 0.2. Might
They
be.
told me, let me say something. When I reached 0.06 at Sloan Kettering, they immediately funneled me off to Dr. Zaletsky and Dr. Danilo, and they both said, you've got to do a curative intent, IMRT, and ADT. Immediately they said that if you want to live. I said, okay. Scardino said, no, no, no. He said, all the medical oncologists believe the end all is ADT, and all the radiation oncologists believe the whole thing is, radiation. Let's just watch and wait. So I watched and waited for 5 years. Okay, here I am. So you said before, is this a mistake? Wait too long? And then Peter Carroll said to me, let's wait because only 15% originate in the pelvic bed or the prostate bed. So I don't know what's up. Sloan Kettering is saying, let's stop it early. Let's go IMRT. Peter Carroll, the more new thinking and younger thinking is let's see what we're dealing with and zap it when we see it. If I went with the IMRT 5 years ago, I would have had a lot of side effects. It landed in my lung lymph nodes, and then it went on to the bones. Still nothing in my pelvis. 20 years later, it's a different ball game than BRCA2 and the gentleman who was asking that question. So I'm sure my slow, indolent course made a difference in Peter's decision to watch and wait and let's, not radiate so quickly. And Scardino also felt the same way.
Jack, I'm kind of surprised to hear that Dr. Carroll said that only 15%
Surprised the
of
hell out of me. I always thought it was,
cancer that appears after a radical prostatectomy is from the pelvic bed,
and I asked him,
because I heard it was almost surely going to be in the pelvic
I
bed.
heard the same thing, and I asked him that question. He said, with the new studies, the PSMA scanning, we're coming up with different statistics than the old statistics. It used to
Ah,
be 33% originated in the prostate bed or the pelvic bed, and now it's coming out that it's only 15%. So it's kind of scary, but that's what he told me, and
well, I think we should know that in order to help us navigate people.
what
Yes,
do you
I agree.
because
yes.
why do I want to radiate my pelvic bed if there's only 15% chance of being there?
Well, I don't know that, but that's what he told me. And this
Yeah,
guy,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just one clarification. You said 0.6 is when Sloan Kettering said you need to
yeah,
take immediate action.
right. As
Okay.
long as you stay below 0.05, you're considered non-detectable.
Well,
But
hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Are you saying 0.06
I'm
or
saying,
0.6?
it's 0.05 is considered, less than that is non-detectable at Sloan Kettering. Anything above that is diagnostically detectable. I hit 0.06, boom, I was detectable. 15 years below 0.05. They don't measure it like some people
Okay.
do at 0.03 or 0.04. They don't even measure it then.
So clarification for Stephen, 0.06 is what Memorial Sloan Kettering said.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to Philip because Philip, you had your surgery back in 2017, and now in uh, April of 23, you're at 0.09. So whatever's going on is slow. I mean, you're not moving that fast, and that's an important factor. Um, let me check again. Where are you still with your urologist? I know you're in Austin, Texas, Philip, but
Yes,
are you still with your urologist?
yes. So, I had the surgery, robotic surgery at MD Anderson in Houston.
Right,
Um, I have not done any other treatments at all, only the
right,
surgery.
right.
And today I am still with the it's not the
Urologist.
urology team that took out I did the biopsy, I'm sorry, here in Austin. That's Austin Urology did the
Yeah.
biopsy.
So
Now I'm with
again, I'm going to say to you what I think we said to you before. If I were me, I'd probably go see Dr. E at Houston Methodist, and I'd start asking her to follow you, and I'd rely on her advice to when to intervene because she's conservative. She doesn't recommend treatment before it's necessary. You really need at this point to have more than just your urologist on the team. And I think she would be a really good person to guide you. And she's not going to jump in with hormone therapy or radiation before it's due.
can you spell her last name, please?
Oh, blimey. We'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat window. Let me put her, I think we gave it to you, but I'm happy to do it again. I've just got to be able to find it. I can find it. I've just got to be able to put it in whilst I'm doing this. But I think that's probably that's probably the best advice we could give you. I mean, to follow this with somebody who is not a urologist and somebody like Dr. Eustathiou is really is really good. So it's right there. It's the spelling of the name is in the URL. All right.
Thank you.
So we're 13 minutes past the witching hour. I thought we were going to get done in 5 minutes past the witching hour, but no. Is there anybody that is still that we haven't spoken to that has anything that can't wait till next week?
There's a question in the chat, Rick.
I'd like to ask one very quick question because I'm using drugs.com. I'm going to be starting darolutamide any day now as soon as I get it. And I take Lipitor, and I've been taking it for years. And what it says is Lipitor, and it's not darolutamide. It's how it reacts to Multag. But I think darolutamide. Here it is. Uh, it can make the amount of darolutamide so excessive that they say that it's kind of risky to be taking Lipitor. Is anybody taking Lipitor and darolutamide? That's all I want to ask. Nobody's old enough. Okay. I'll figure it out. Could have waited.
All right. The question in the chat is from Joe Commander, which says, what's the proper approach to ask questions in this group? The proper approach to ask questions is to ask for time when we ask you. That's why we go around everybody at the beginning and say, do you need time? If you have a question that comes up during the meeting, put it in the chat window. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
I personally just don't have the bandwidth to do one-on-one navigation with a whole bunch of people. I just don't have it. I wish I could. Okay. And the system we have at ANCAN is that the meetings are free and drop in. But if you want one-on-one navigation, we ask you to make a donation, really out of respect to our advocates' time. Some of my co-moderators have more time than I do and are willing to do it. You can send them questions if you like. I prefer you don't send to me because I will probably throw them back into the meeting. But if they're really urgent, I'm happy to take them. So we really don't have a system to handle questions between meetings. Something we should probably discuss. We don't have it right now, and it would be up to the moderators how they want to handle it. But Ben and Len and Dr. John are very, very generous with their time. They truly are. So, maybe the thing to do is to reach out to one of them during a meeting and see if you can correspond with them. And Peter Kafka as well. I should add Peter Kafka. And Herb has always been, but he's not in a situation right now for us to include him. But if you have something that comes up during a meeting, please put it in the chat. And the moderators are all trained to be watching the chat. And if it's something we can handle, we'll try and get to it. And we usually we'll maybe come back to it at the end of the meeting. I'm always willing to stay on for as long as it takes, even as we dwindle to about half of what we were. So what's your question, Joe?
I didn't have one yet. I just wanted to know. I'm sorry for taking up so much time with it.
You didn't. Well, happy to answer it. It's a very good question. We don't usually talk about process in this meeting, and it's worthwhile. And we're still recording, so you'll hear it. And maybe I should repeat that, or one of us should repeat it from time to time. But I'm glad you don't have a question.
Rick,
Yes, Jimmy,
I have something that must wait till next week.
you do. Okay,
It
then
must
we'll
wait
allow
till
you.
next week.
We'll allow you to let it wait till next week, then,
I
Jimmy.
appreciate that very much.
All right, can I go now? Is
You
it
can go
soup
now.
yet?
Let's
Is
all
it soup
go.
yet?
Now,
All right, good night, everybody.
everybody.
Good night.